The Honourable Member Darian Fenton.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Well, it's as always a privilege and a pleasure to follow the Honourable Tau Henare. I mean, what arrogance that he just demonstrated in this, in talking about clause 1, 2 and 3, Mr Chair. I mean, you know, and I have to ask him, I asked him before the dinner break, Mr Chair, about why he's always here yelling out. But actually, he has so little influence on his government, and his government is so out of touch. Because if they were in touch, they would be supporting Clause 3, Principal Act Amendment. They would be amending the blood alcohol content level. They would be decreasing it from 0.08 to 0.5. Now, this debate has been, we have raged over these the debates around this one, but I still don't understand why the Principal Act did not amend, why this bill does not amend the Principal Act to ensure that the blood alcohol content level or limit falls. And because we all know, we've heard the arguments all night. Sorry? The country's lucky I'm not the Minister of Transport. Well, I mean, the country is lucky, Mr Chair, that Tau Henare is not the Minister of anything. Thank goodness for that. Thank goodness for that. May we never see the day, and in fact, I think we will never see the day. So I want to express my disappointment, Mr Chair, that the blood alcohol content limit has been kicked for touch by the Minister. He never had the fortitude to do something about it when he had the opportunity. So this Principal Act will be amended without the blood alcohol content level being amended. Mr Chair, because I didn't have an opportunity earlier on, the other issue I wanted to address in talking about the Principal Act being amended, Clause 3, the Principal Act being amended, is the provision in Clause 12 which raises the minimum driver licensing age. Well, that's a good idea, actually. Well, you brought it up. Sorry, that member brought it up.
Order.
Yep. I apologise, Mr Chair, but I'm being sorely provoked from across the chamber. The Clause 12 in this Act, in this bill that amends the Principal Act, raises the minimum driver licensing age. And as we've debated tonight and earlier on, is that we don't support this. We have some difficulties with it. Now, I want to make it really clear that Labor is extremely sympathetic to some of the comments that the Minister made earlier on. Look, no one in this country, including the Labor opposition, wants to see young people dying on our roads unnecessarily. No one wants to see that. But our difficulty with this provision, where the Principal Act has been amended, is that there is not the evidence that the issue is around age. So that what hasn't been explored is the age versus education versus the time on the roads and so on. And what we know from evidence, Mr Chair, of course, is that young drivers become more dangerous actually when they've had some experience, not when they start driving. And we have a problem with the fact that the overall effect of these changes is that a young driver is going to have to be 17 before they can obtain a restricted licence. Right. That causes enormous problems in a struggling economy. In a struggling economy, not everybody's going to stay at school. Most kids have to stay at school till they're 16, but many of them want to go and study. Many of them want to go out and do jobs, and even they work part-time because the country's in such a parlous state that so many kids now have to go out and work part-time just to help their families. If they can get a job, if there's any jobs out there, of course, and then, of course, they're going to get minimum wage, minimum wage is miserable 25 cents an hour increase from the 1st of April. But however, how are those families supposed to cope with the fact that their child, their 15 or 16-year-old, is not going to be able to go to work after school or during study, is not going to be able to take up study. So it's fine to talk about study and let's do things for our young people and bring them through, and I hear Paula Bennett going on about that all the time, but if they can't actually get there, and the real difficulty is, Mr Chair, is in Auckland, where I live, there is no alternative means. for those kids to get from home to get... Mr Chair.
I call the honourable member Darian Fenton.
Thank you very much, Mr Chair. Thank you. Now, look, going back to what I said, there's no alternative means for them to get from home to work. I mean, because we have a real issue about public transport in Auckland. There is an issue. I mean, even though Labor did an enormous amount around that, we now have a government that just wants to build roads everywhere, spend a fortune on roads of national significance that mean nothing to 15 and 16-year-olds that are trying to get from home to work, to earn a little bit extra to be able to help their families support themselves, because the reality is the cost of living is having such a dire impact on families because wages aren't going up, because the minimum wage is pathetic. These children of 15 and 16-year-olds are now contributing to the family's income. How on earth are they supposed to get to work? And the other thing is, Mr Chair, I would have thought in amending the Principal Act that the government would have been more sympathetic to its rural supporters, from Federated Farmers and Rural New Zealand Women, good organisations who made very straightforward submissions to the Select Committee about their concerns about how people in our young people in our rural areas are supposed to get around from one place to another. And often that's going to school, going to college, or it might be going to work. But this government has shown that it doesn't care. It's shown it's actually out of touch, not only with the 15 and 16 young people in our urban communities, but also those in rural communities. This government doesn't listen. It's not listening, completely out of touch with that. Now, there were discussions during the Select Committee process, Mr Chair, about alternatives, and I know there was explored about whether there could be some sort of exemptions for young people who need to go to work or who are in rural communities, but the government said no. They said nothing about that. They're not interested in that. And look, can I go back to what I started with, Mr Chair? Labor is extremely concerned, along with everybody else, about the crash statistics for our 15 to 19-year-olds. We're very concerned about that. As I said, no one wants to see our young people dying unnecessarily on the roads. We do have a high teenage crash rate, but let's be clear about it. It's not when they start driving. It's not when they sign up at 15 to get their learner licence. It's later on. And I think the ACT member talked about 100 hours. That's what these statistics, that's what the information tells us, Mr Chair. And what I'm really disturbed about is here we are punishing our young people, doing something, that makes it look like the government's doing, actually tackling a problem, but they're doing it without evidence. They're doing it without thinking about whether it's age, whether it's driver education, whether it's experience. And I would have thought, given their call for 2 years of research on lowering the blood alcohol limit, while they're prepared to do that, they're prepared to say, well, we're not going to make a decision on that, even though the evidence is already overwhelming, and even though the public want it. I would have thought with this particular issue they would have been taking a consistent approach, which is that, yes, let's find the evidence. Let's find out if it is age, if it is driver experience, if it is driver education that makes a difference. But here we have, in amending this bill, two things that the Labor opposition is extremely disappointed about. One is the minimum driver licensing age. It's going to have an impact on our young people. And the other one is the cop-out that this government has demonstrated by refusing to take up the evidence and the call of the public, of the New Zealand public, to reduce the blood alcohol content limit from 0.8 to 0.5. So, Mr Chair, in the amendments to the bill, as we've said, there's a lot of things that we really support. We think are good steps forward, and may I add that they build on Labor's work when it was in government, despite what the national government has said. I don't know if they've taken any notice, but there was a whole program called See You There, Safe As, a whole program around improving road safety, and in fact road safety has been improving steadily for a long time, and it improved under Labor. What we see with this government is no goals for reducing it. We've got this vague vision which is about reducing accidents and injuries. Well, of course everybody's going to say that's a good thing. It's a good thing. That's in the title. but no real commitment to some of the things to looking at some of the things that actually matter, which is the impact on the driver licensing age and the blood alcohol limit.
Mr. Chair.